Hey everyone, welcome back. I hope you all got a chance to listen to the last episode on mineral deficiencies. Had a lot of feedback on that episode, and I hope it was helpful. And I know the root causes of many things aren't talked about often. So I hope that episode helps to clear the air with regard to root causes of mineral deficiencies. Today, I want to talk about anxiety and PTSD and how to turn this into your superpower. um, I'm going to share a bit about my experience with this, which is extensive. For those of you who haven't yet subscribed to my Eat Heal Farm Substack, I encourage you to do so. You don't have to be a paid subscriber if you don't want to, but all of the earnings from that platform goes toward supporting our farm into making it a regenerative one. And we are working on that. And the Eat Heal Farm Substack talks about our journey to regenerative farming. But not only that, I share about our food system, how you can make the best, healthiest choices for your body and your family and your health needs through food. And that is, and I'm going about it in a way that I don't feel like is getting much attention yet, but I suspect that will be changing very soon. I talk about how organic was is no longer the gold standard, how regenerative agriculture is now the gold standard, and it's more of the ancient way. And I talk a lot about that in the Eat Heal Farm Substack. I also share about our farm journey. I post very personal videos about our farm journey and us, my wife and I, on our farm. And recently, I shared about my journey with regard to how I actually stepped into being a farmer. And I say cowboy also, and I'm still working on that one. But, my wife and I will sometimes, playfully ask each other, like, if you could go back to your, teens or 20s and like what would you do different? Like what would you work towards? What would would you still be an athlete? And I would be like, my answers, I was like, no, I would be a cowboy. And so that's something that I'm still harnessing and I'm working on. But I share in my last two posts on the Eat Heal Farm Substack about how I actually stepped into these roles. And these are, I didn't necessarily have any idea that I wanted to be a cowboy or a farmer when I was younger. But I did know I always liked food and had a passion for food and eating healthy food and growing healthy food. And that was always a big part of my life. But I never thought I could, go after that. Like, oh, everybody, I think many people, I should say, have these aspirations or, oh, I wish I could do that. I wish I could do this. And oftentimes we can do those things. There are just some things, some roadblocks in the way, preventing us from stepping into those things that we really want to, own and embrace, so to speak. So, I call the last two posts on the Eat Heal Farm Substack my coming out story because I've never really shared, I've shared, you might think I share personal details on the podcast here, which I do. But I feel like the last two posts on the Eat Heal Farm Substack really kind of like, it split something open. It really cut through something and so I shared a lot of vulnerable things there, felt timely, and it felt like one, you know, people like, oh, share your real self on social media and self and share your sore spots and your pain points. And it's like, I'm all about that, but you have to remember that I'm a sun in Aquarius, and so I hate a trend, and so I'm not gonna post like something like that just to like get followers or to like I fucking hate that shit. I'm gonna post it when my heart feels ready, if it feels ready to do that. For some reason, Well, the last two posts that I posted on Substack and this podcast episode, which I'll share more about my personal journey with anxiety and PTSD, um, to help any of you who may struggle with that. Maybe you know somebody who struggles with that, or maybe you're married to somebody who struggles with that. I want you to help. I want these can be our superpowers, and they're very challenging um emotions and energies to deal with also. So we have to learn how to harness those. But I say this is like my coming out story because I've never really shared the extent of, hey, how did my anxiety affect my life? How did it affect my marriage? How did it affect the choices I made? And so forth. And no matter here's the thing, every single person in every single couple, if you're in a couple, if you're in a marriage, a partnership, a relationship, but every single person in every single couple has something. There's something that they feel discouraged about, that's a pain place, that's a sore spot that brings up tension in the relationship or tension in the individual. Nobody is um nobody is immune to this. Everybody has something, and every couple has something that they bump up against. And so I really want to make a point of sharing that, because everyone thinks, oh, like, this is so bad, and this person does things so perfectly, and that, Heather's marriage is amazing. And yeah, I have a good marriage, but you have to understand that in order to be in a good partnership, and or in order to um be, I don't know what the best word, the best version of yourself, whatever, however you want to call it, you have to do work on yourself. You have to, my marriage is in a good place because we work on it. We work, it's a work in progress, and we've come a long way. There are times in my marriage where I was like, oh, I'm not sure if this is gonna go well. I'm not sure if we're gonna make it. But we kept working at it. And that's the thing. That's the thing. Like, no matter what you're struggling with, you have to work on it. You don't just get to like good fun places 7-10 years in your marriage, because it's a good day, right? No, you get to those places because you work on these things. You work on the sore spots, you work on the tender places, you work on the places that, like, oh, they feel so embarrassing or so shameful or so hard and challenging, and you work on those. And that's how you get to, hey, we had a great week, hey, we had a great month, hey, it was an awesome year. And so, the same thing goes for our health with regard to anxiety, PTSD, or a physical symptom, autoimmunity, whatever it is. You get to these improved places because you work on your health, not just because you know it, you're blessed on that day. It's like, you have there, the work has to be done to get to these places anyway. So this is me being more vulnerable and sharing with you, because here's the deal. One, I don't, I'm not, I like can't keep secrets. I'm not like somebody you can tell a secret to, and I'm not going to tell someone. If you tell me a secret, I'm probably gonna tell someone. Okay. It's just like, I'm not gonna tell the person you don't want me to tell, but I'm gonna tell my wife, or I'm gonna, that's not me. So here I am sharing more in this part of myself with you. But also, one, I want you to know that, I'm a real person, and I'm not perfect, and I have things I work on every day also. And two, I hope that in sharing what I've shared on the last two posts on the Eat Heal Farm Substack, and if you listen to this, months to years from now, those posts are, I don't fly, I farm. And the other one, and the follow up to that, is how I harnessed my inner cowboy. So those are the posts on the Eat Heal Farm Substack of me coming out. So, but I also want to share this with you in hopes that you, whatever place inside of you feels, you don't like it, makes your skin crawl, you wish you didn't have it, fuck this thing, I'm done with this, when am I going to be done with this, I don't want this thing anymore. Okay, and this can be PTSD, it can be anxiety, it could be a physical health struggle, it could be a disease, it could be anything, migraine headaches, it could be anything. And so my whole goal and hope is that in sharing these things with you, it helps you see those things in a new light, those parts of yourself that you're like, stay the fuck away, don't come out of the closet, like, I don't want to deal with you, I don't want to see you, I thought I dealt with this, whatever it may be. The things about yourself that you consider ugly, unpleasant, you don't like, I hope that this helps you see those parts of yourself in new light. Because when you do, big transformations will happen with your health and your life and your relationships. Um, and in ways that you probably, don't even expect or imagine. So, so with that being said, one, I would love if you subscribe to the Eat Heal Farm Substack. And again, if you don't have $5 a month, then just subscribe for free. You'll get all the posts, okay? We would sincerely appreciate, $5 a month to put toward our farm and so forth. But, we want to build community and share our insights with you. So I welcome you to join us over there and to subscribe there. And then let's dive right in here today, talking about anxiety and PTSD. Now, I'm going to talk about anxiety and PTSD because this was my journey. This is my wheelhouse because I have so much experience with these with these things, with these symptoms. But you could literally fill in the blank for whatever condition or emotion that you struggle with, okay? And you can apply what I'm going to share with you here today to that thing you struggle with. Whether it's a disorder you're having trouble getting over, whether it's depression, whether it's something that you feel, unsettled about in your marriage or your partnership, whatever it may be, you can fill in the blank. But I'm going to talk about it from an anxiety and PTSD standpoint. Now, the thing about anxiety and PTSD, no matter what any functional doc or allopathic practitioner tells you, or whatever test or thing they have, you cannot test for these things with a machine. These aren't hard things to diagnose. They're not. You just have to listen to somebody's symptoms, honestly. And this isn't, you know, this isn't just pertain to anxiety and PTSD. If you just listen to somebody's symptoms, you can figure out what they have. And that's how doctors used to work and function and operate, until we got into all these disease diagnoses and put people in boxes. And I'm not saying some of those things aren't helpful sometime, but we get very myopic with that approach, and then we forget about the things that really matter when it comes to helping somebody heal, helping somebody overcome what they're struggling with from a root place. Oh, you have cancer, and then somebody will Google it, and then they'll, take all these cancer herbs and these ozone and these cancer tree and hyperbaric. It's like, whoa, like, is that even what your body needs, right? So the thing is, when it comes to anxiety, PTSD, whatever you struggle with, this is easy to diagnose by understanding somebody's symptoms, okay? And no matter what condition somebody has, those symptoms, there can be the same diagnoses, but different symptoms present. So let me give you an example. So PTSD. I didn't have symptoms of PTSD until after my car accident when I was in my very early 20s. Okay. Got in the car accident, couldn't get out of the car, trapped in the car, head hit the steering wheel. Tried to get out, couldn't get out. I actually don't remember this, but my body has memory of this. It's very apparent that my body has memory of this, being trapped in the car, can't get out, like stressfully trying to get out of the car. I don't remember a thing. Um, But a firefighter drove by on his way to work and like told me this story about, later. Today, I can't you can forget about me getting into a tiny place, an elevator, even going into a public bathroom and like having to close the door and thinking that the lock might not might lock me in. It's a huge trigger. And I don't have any memory like I don't remember this myself being in the car struggling trying to get out. But my body remembers this very well because I didn't have those symptoms until after the car accident. So the jaws of life had to come, rip the top of the car open, and then lift me out. Again, I remember none of this. And then they take me to the hospital, do the CAT scans, MRIs. Psh, fine. Oh yeah, you're good, Heather. You can go back to work in just a few days. Don't worry about it. Okay, that's how my story went. Now, my symptoms were some of exactly what I'm telling you here. So, don't like tiny spaces, feeling trapped, feeling claustrophobic. And since then, I won't get into any situation that I feel like I'm gonna be trapped in. Like on an airplane, I won't get on an airplane, not because I don't like to fly, which I don't like the thought of that. Let's be honest, it's not doesn't make me feel warm and fuzzy. But also I feel like, oh, like there's no way off of this plane until they open that door and I don't have control over this situation. And my body cannot handle that stress. It's too much. It's too much for it. So those are some of my PTSD symptoms. When I was in my car accident, I was driving to work early in the morning. I was in the car by myself, and I cannot drive in the car for very far, more than a couple few miles by myself without feeling re-triggered by this event. And if you're across the screen or listening to this, you're like, oh, Heather, have you tried this or that? The answer is yes. The answer is yes. The answer is yes, I have. It's okay. Like, this is the point that I want to make is that, well, for one, before I go there, I want to say this. Whether you have anxiety, PTSD, incontinence, heart issues, high no matter what you have, whatever term you give that, the symptoms are going to look at least a little bit different from person to person. Okay. So PTSD is a big blanket term, and there are so many symptoms that fall under that. What I'm saying is you don't need to go to a doctor to have a diagnosis. You just have to know yourself and your symptoms. And it can be helpful if you have a practitioner. Like if somebody comes to me for a homeopathic session, which I'm actually accepting new clients. So if you want to work with me, that's a great way to start working together. Um, but I will say, if you have to, your practitioner, a good practitioner, will be able to understand how to treat you just by hearing your symptoms. Now, if you come to me or a practitioner and you just give a disease diagnosis, most practitioners, oh, you're anemic, now take this, this, and that, iron, and these glandulars, and that's like a horseshit practitioner. If any practitioner does that to you, just throw up the peace sign. You might want to try to ask for a refund. Maybe it may or may not be possible, but at least they aren't getting to the root of the issue if they just have a disease diagnosis and then they prescribe X, Y, and Z. Nope. We have to understand somebody's symptoms. We have to understand what triggers those symptoms. And then from there, once we understand that, you can get somebody the correct treatment to start addressing those symptoms. Okay. So I just want to put that out there. If you've gone from practitioner to practitioner, you have this condition or that condition, and they give you a generic, cookie cutter approach or supplement list, I mean, peace, honestly. Okay. So let me just go into this a little bit more with the anxiety, the PTSD, my journey, and so forth. So And I'm bringing this up because so many people come to me today and they're like, Heather, I cannot tolerate this symptom anymore. I cannot tolerate this anymore. This is like driving me nuts. Believe me, I know because I've been through these things that drive these symptoms that are absolutely, you just want to pull your hair out over. So the thing is, for one, we cannot push through our symptoms, typically, generally. I'll talk a little bit about when you can and when you can't. You cannot push through your symptoms. You cannot just make them go away. Your symptoms are there for a reason. If you suppress your symptoms, the pathology will go deeper in your body. And that's what we want to try to avoid when we can. We want to try to avoid pushing the pathology into deeper layers of the body as often as we can. Now, for example, let's say me, because if I were to get in a car solo, and I've had this experience many times, and drive in the middle of the city. This is when I used to try to push myself, like go into the situation that was triggering to me. It's called immersion therapy in the therapy world. You put yourself in the situation that makes you most stressed, and you continue to do that over and over. And some people, they can get over whatever they're struggling with that way. But I'm here to tell you some people can't, and I'm one of those people who can't. So, but it took me a long time to accept this, and I'll talk more about that. So here's the deal. Driving in the middle of the city, a lot of traffic, stopped at a light, there's a long row of traffic. Here's the same feeling that my body experienced in the car accident of being trapped. I can't get out of this situation. Like I have to sit here literally until the traffic moves, the light changes, and then we hope that all goes well. And so what happens when I get in that situation is my body goes into this hyper vigilant state, and I get, anxious and panicky and so forth. Now, remember, interject the symptoms you have. Like when I eat this food, my inflammation goes high. You can say the same thing, everybody has a trigger, right? So here's the deal. For years and years and years, I tried to strong arm my way through these triggers, through being okay with crowds. Oh, I can get over it through this immersion therapy. Let's just go into the situation. Let's go into tiny spaces, drive by yourself, get into elevators, like, go for it. Let's just try this. And doing this for me actually made my PTSD symptoms worse every single time. And it took my body at least a week to recover from that situation. My nervous system was so amped up. Okay. So, what we have to understand is that, we may try all of the things for our healing and make improvements, because I've definitely made improvements, and I have sunlight and homeopathy to thank for this. But there are also some things that some symptoms, some PTSD symptoms that my body just seems like at this time, um, aren't, they're not going to budge. They're there. There's that, and that PTSD stored in my body. And so for years, I was like, I could get over this. And I consider myself a committed person, an integral person. I show up for my clients. I show up for my marriage. I show up for my farm. I milk our cows twice a day. It's like, so I can do all these hard things, but what, but this? And then I beat myself up for years. And especially as an athlete, it was like, oh, you go and you push through, and you push through until you win. And that's how I approached my PTSD and anxiety. And I will tell you that approach, every time I lost every time. It was like a losing battle. But for years and years and years, this is how I approached my anxiety, my PTSD. Maybe you have physical symptoms and you're just like, fuck you, joint pain or bladder pain or back pain or head pain. And, we go to war with these things. And so that approach never works, okay? And what also, it's a trap. And and I'm not saying that the symptoms or disorders you have are not curable. And I'm not saying that by accepting my anxiety and PTSD that I just don't work on these things anymore or don't try to make improvements. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is when we push against our symptoms, whatever they may be, we make things worse. When we're like, fuck you, body, we make things worse. This this is not a healing environment for our body, but we all do it because we all have things that are frustrating, that are annoying, that we don't like about, our body, our marriage, our symptoms, etc., right? So honestly, I'm not lying. For over a decade, I struggled with this. I tried immersion therapy over and over and over, and it would just, my symptoms actually would get worse and worse and worse by going about it in this way. So, um, what we also have to understand is a lot of people, so many people, if and most people who are alive and breathing and living on this planet, they have a past life and they have a life right now, right? Like my past life was as an athlete, and now my life is, oh, farmer, cowboy, homeopath, right? This is now my life. I couldn't imagine that life before when I was an athlete. So usually many people have these aspects of themselves. Oh, I used to be this, and then this thing happened, and now I'm this. So what I really want to emphasize is usually when people get sick or struggle with symptoms that are really frustrating, and so much so that can drive people to depression, to even wanting to end their life, to wanting to throw in the towel, to wanting, we and I can say from my own experience and working with clients who are in this position is people are trying to get back to something. They're trying to oh, if I could just get back to that time before. And that also is a trap, okay? We have a hard time letting go in our culture, okay? I am one of the most stubborn people I know. And it took me over a decade after my accident to stop fighting with my PTSD and anxiety symptoms and choose a different way to go about them, which brought so much relief. And I'll talk about that in a minute. But what I want to focus on here is that there's no going back. There's only going forward. Okay. If you're stuck on the past and trying to get back to something, that the momentum of life has taken you away from that part. Something has changed, and now you're in this new situation, and it's time to course correct. And that course correction is not how do I go back, it's how do I go forward. How do I go forward? What is next? And we cannot move to that forward place. And oftentimes we don't even know what that forward place is. If somebody were to tell me when I was, 22 years old in the car accident, that my forward place would be farmer and cowboy, I'd fucking laugh in their face. I'd be like, yeah, right. Like I'm an athlete. I'm gonna be, this is what I'm doing. Okay. I can't make money being a farmer and what, I'm not gonna do that. Who wants to do that? That's my thought. That you could have told me that then, right? I couldn't see the forward, right? And you're not going to be able to see where the train is heading until you accept where you are and you let go of there's no going back to that. Not that you won't do some of those things, not that like, for example, after my car accident, I could not work out. Migraine headaches, dizziness, vertigo, extreme fatigue. Nope, I couldn't even do it. And that's after like working out every day of my life since I was like, came out of the womb, honestly. So if you were to tell me I wasn't going to be able to work out anymore, I would have told you to go to hell. And I was so stubborn that I pushed against it, even though it made my symptoms worse. I still did it in my 20s, still did it. I was trying to get back to, oh, I'm going to be this person again. If I could just get back there. Now, today, I don't go to the gym and do extreme workouts like I once did, but I move my body. Farming is very vigorous. I hike. I've gotten to places that are still my body's still physically active. Does it look like it did before the car accident? No, it doesn't. It doesn't, and I had to let that go, and it took a long time. But once I let that go, then all of this new forward movement started to happen. I just was working with a client, and they were like, "How do I just want to get back to this. I just, these symptoms are present and I just want to get back to this way that how I was before these symptoms came." And I had to have an honest conversation. I said, "I'm not saying you won't be," she's a very physically active person. "I won't say you won't be doing these physical things ever again. But when we focus on how do I get back to this thing, we're missing out on what the symptoms we're currently experiencing are where they're trying to lead us. Because they're not trying to lead us backward. They're trying to lead us forward. They're trying to lead us in a new direction. So, in order to get to that new direction, and once you get to that new direction, it's not like, oh, I'm healed, I'm symptom free. I'm still have anxiety and PTSD. But, you know, is it better? Markedly better. Okay. Is it completely healed? No. But is my life and quality of life much better? Absolutely, 1,000,000%. Absolutely. So here's the thing, we can't go backward. So please, I want you to really, really try to let going back go. Let it go. If you're like, how do I get back? Nope, that's a trap. That steals your energy. It steals your energy and prevents you from moving forward. It prevents you from, where are these symptoms? Where is this disorder? Where is this leading me? If you're trying to go back, oh, how do I get back to when my marriage was like this? How do I get back to when I didn't have this symptom? How do I get back to being a gym rat? Nope, not going to be a win. It's not going to be a win. It's not. It's going to be a fight. It's going to make things worse. So you have to let go of, how do I get back to this thing? That's number one. Number two, when your symptoms come up, try not to fight with them. Now, I'm not saying like do namaste and go into downward dog and fucking meditate it away. That's not going to work either. You have to own your feelings around the symptoms. It pisses me off. I feel frustrated. I feel like I can't get any better. I feel so hopeless. I just want to die. You have to express and own those symptoms. The key there is to not get trapped in those symptoms, but in those feelings, but you can't ignore them. Ignoring them and not fully expressing what you're feeling will also prevent the forward movement. So for example, with me, with the anxiety and PTSD, it was like, God, I wish I didn't have this anxiety. I wish I didn't have this. I hate it. I feel so much shame about it. This is so embarrassing. I can't do things that, other people can do. I can't drive in my car solo. I can't like get on an airplane and visit my family. I can't get on an airplane and go on vacation with my wife. Oh my God, I'm such a failure. Um, Shame spiral. That once you get in the shame spiral, you've lost. Forget it. Okay, that's not helpful either. It's not going to help with the forward movement. The key is to own the feelings that come up around your symptoms, whether you're discouraged about your body, your mental emotional health, your marriage, you're not finding a partner, whatever it may be. Let that out, and then you got to move forward. You got to do something that re-regulates your nervous system, and that's going to look different for every person. So let's say you have a physical symptom of joint pain. And so you're fucking pissed off about the joint pain. You can't move. Whenever you lay down too long, your joint pain gets worse. Then you get depressed. Then you feel like a failure. Then you feel like you're not doing anything with your life. And then you feel like giving up. And you get in the shame spiral, right? The key is to try not to get caught in the shame spiral. Everybody does, right? We're not perfect. I get caught in the shame spiral still today. It just happens. Catch yourself though, because you want the time you spend in the shame spiral to get less and less and less and less. Okay. Catch yourself in the shame spiral. And once you do something to re regulate yourself. This is how you're going to move forward with your symptoms. This is how you're going to move forward into stepping into owning these parts of yourself that want to emerge, that these symptoms, this stress is trying to move you toward. You have to learn how to regulate yourself. Whatever that is, that looks different for everyone. So, for example, for me, what regulates me? Going on a hike, going for a walk, doing a podcast with you all, writing. These things help to regulate me. I feel more grounded. And how do you know when you're regulated? You're out of the shame spiral and you feel more positive. You and not that like it's not like, oh, love and light, sister, and namaste. And like it's not that kind of positive. It's real positive. You feel good about yourself. You feel hopeful. You feel like, oh man, that was inspiring. That fired me up. I love life again. That's how you know you're regulated. You've re-regulated yourself. Okay. If you know you have to be around people, go to a coffee shop, go to a bookstore, wherever that may be, and like just be around people. Whatever regulates you, you have to know what regulates you, what makes you feel grounded. Because when you get in that shame spiral and when you feel horrible about your anxiety, your PTSD, your marriage, you don't have a partner, you need to regulate yourself. Okay, we want to look outside. Oh, let me take this supplement, or let me, whatever. Let me go to this practitioner. And I'm not saying that those things aren't supportive, but we often forget that, and we're not taught in our culture that we have the tools and power to regulate ourselves. I should say we have the power. We have to learn how to do it. We have to learn the tools. How do I get regulated? So for me, as I mentioned, I'll do a podcast, I'll go for a hike, I'll go for a walk, I'll go down with my cows. Um, uh, I'll go outside and sit in sunlight. But usually for me, I have to move my body. Moving my body helps me regulate, helps me feel ground. Sometimes if I'm angry, I have to go out and shout. I have to go out in the middle of the forest and just be like, fuck you, Home Depot delivery. You've destroyed my trees. And, like literally came to the house yesterday. Why he had such a big truck, I'm not sure. He had to drop off some 2x4s and he took out several of my pinyon trees. And I am just like fucking heated. Now, I'm not swearing at the guy. I'm saying, hey, this is an issue. I'm telling him. But afterward, I had to go let it out because that I was so dysregulated after that because he fucked up my trees that I love, right? So whatever helps you feel regulated, know what that is for you. It's going to look different for every person. Okay. It's going to look different for every person. If you can take yourself from the shame spiral to, okay, what regulates me, then you're going to gradually move in the forward direction. You're not going back. Okay. So, I really want to emphasize that because a lot of us get stuck in our symptoms. For me, I was stuck on these symptoms for a really long time, and I have an awesome therapist. I love her. And actually, my wife and I go to couples therapy. I don't actually work one-on-one with a therapist because that doesn't work for me. I like to go as a couple. That works really well for me. Some people like to go one-on-one. Like my wife, she could go one-on-one to therapy probably most days a week, and she'd be like, "Oh my God, I feel amazing." And it really regulates her. For me, I like to go as a couple. Again, that's what works for me. My whole thing here is like you have to find what works for you and what regulates you. Okay. So, what I want to mention here is that because I'm sure that many of you have symptoms that are embarrassing that you don't want to admit to people, that you don't want to admit to yourself. Because for me, I had this experience, and my thought process was, if I accept that I can't drive solo in the car, if I accept that I can't get on an airplane, I'm a quitter, I'm a loser, I've lost, and that's that's how I felt. And I felt so much shame and embarrassment around these symptoms that our therapist, and working with our therapist, it took me literally 3 years for me to tell her the extent of my PTSD and anxiety, because I was afraid of how long has it been since, I've been doing this podcast forever. I don't it's a lot of shame, a lot of embarrassment, and I'm sharing this with you because if you have shame and embarrassment around your symptoms or whatever the emotions may be, it's okay. It's not going to help you move forward. We have to learn how to process the feelings around our physical, mental, emotional struggles. Okay, that's bottom line. So I didn't tell my therapist this for like 3 years, honestly. And um I was sobbing when I'm not like a crier. I'm not a big crier. I don't cry easily. It's not my thing. It's like, yeah, I can get emotional if I say something really vulnerable or something, but so I'm telling my therapist, I'm sobbing. I was expecting her to tell me to push through these symptoms, like, oh, okay, well, let's try the immersion therapy again. I was expecting something like this. I was expecting her to tell me to do something that I didn't want to do, right? Because in growing up in our cultures, like, you push through, you don't lose, you push through. I was expecting her to tell me that Jen should divorce me. I was expecting her to say, oh, this isn't good for a marriage. And I was embarrassed that if she saw this part of me, or that anyone saw this part of me, that they wouldn't like me, they would think less of me. I thought my therapist wasn't going to work with me anymore. And so, listen, um, this is everybody has these tender places. They're like, we have a lot of judgment about our symptoms, whatever they may be. But here's the deal. I learned a lot from being opening up to my therapist, because instead of that response, she did the exact opposite actually. She accepted me, she understood my suffering, she empathized with me. She was the first person to give me permission to not push through environments that triggered my PTSD symptoms. She's like, "Oh, driving by yourself jacks up your nervous system. It doesn't help you. It causes tension in for weeks in your body. Why would you do that?" And I was like, well, she's like, you don't have to do that. And she gave me permission. I didn't have to do that, and taught me to put up boundaries around my triggers, meaning instead of pushing through these tender areas, I needed to instead say, no, I can't do that. I need to let's find a different way. Like, can we think of a different strategy? Because there's always more than one way to do things. Always, always, always. Okay. And so, this may seem like a simple solution. Oh, you just accept your limitations, right? But honestly, it was the hardest thing I've ever done. I had to accept my limitations. I had to admit to them. And then on top of that, I had to say, no, I actually can't do that, which I don't like to say, no, I can't do that. I want to be able to do everything. I want to be strong and push through and be able to do everything. But my body, and I tried that for years, and every time I lost, every time my symptoms would flare, and then shame spiral, flare, shame spiral, flare, shame. It's a fucking broken record, you know? It's like, okay, so if you do this, flare, shame spiral. You do something, your body, your symptoms get flared, shame spiral. It's not working. Okay. That's a red flag that something new needs to happen. So when I started to change my relationship with PTSD, anxiety, when I stopped going into environments that were triggering, I was like, "Oh my God," a huge weight was lifted from my body, like my heart, my soul, my marriage. It was like, "Oh my God, like this is such a freaking relief." I don't have to do this. And maybe this pertains to you, like, oh my God, I don't have to eat this diet like 24/7 to do this, or I don't have to take this supplement, or I don't have to try to push through and continue with this profession that's not supporting my health and body. We have to learn how to say no. We have to learn how to put up a boundary around what doesn't work for us. because that's how we move forward. That's how we really move into an improved place with our symptoms. So when I no longer had to really stress or worry about navigating my PTSD triggers, oh, how's it going to be if I tell Jen I can't drive to this place, or if I tell my family I can't fly to see them, or instead I started saying no. But not only no, it's not like no and I'm being selfish. It's like my body has limitations. I can't do that. I really feel bad that I can't do that, but I can't do that. This is what I can do. Why don't we try it like this, right? And so when I stopped pushing against these symptoms and trying to get back to a place before they occurred, that's when the farmer and the cowboy in me really started to come forward, because there was space for these parts of me that wanted to come forward. If I went back to being an athlete, went back to before the anxiety, I was living in a much more city, urban environment. I was doing 9 to 5s. I was go, go, go. I wasn't, I was eating well, and I was working out, but was I really taking care of my body? Was I working on my light environment, my emotional health? Was I really doing what my heart's passion was? No, I wasn't. And it wasn't until the car accident and then these symptoms that resulted from that, and when I finally fucking stopped going to war with them, that this part of myself was able to, oh my God, I love living in the country. I love rural living. I love not being around all of the like chaos of the city. I know some people love the chaos of it. I don't. My wife's in New York City right now going to Broadway with her mom for her mom's 70th birthday. And, you know, um, we're at this place in our relationship where like, babe, go do that. You love doing that. That's like a fucking death trap for me. So I'm gonna take a hard pass, but I want you to go and do that and have an amazing time, and I'll watch the farm. Right. And so when but in the past I'd be like, oh my God, how can I push through this? How can I get to New York City and like, really navigate this? It's like that's a fucking nightmare for me, for my nervous system. It would be a living hell. So it's just a no. And how do we find a way to make that work, right? So once I let those parts of myself go, so nope, not going back to that. I'm not even gonna try. I'm not gonna try. And that doesn't mean I've lost. I've actually won, because I've embraced and allowed space for this part of myself that's really why I'm here, to be a healer, to farm, hopefully to be a cowboy, here to like, I'm here to do these things. And without those symptoms and grappling with them and fighting with them and then letting them go, I couldn't get to that place. If I just stayed in my past life, it'd be this urban city, go, 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 9 to 5. And I know that some people do just fine with that. And that's fine. I don't. I actually do really bad with that. That's not what the environment I thrive on. But I didn't know that until I was able to, let go of my PTSD symptoms and allow this space for this part of myself to come forward. So when we try to go back to something, or when we're constantly fighting against our symptoms, or when we're constantly in a shame spiral about our symptoms, our marriage, not having a partner, then all those things get all of our attention and energy and libido and life force. And there is no space for these parts of ourself that are very much wanting to come out. There's no space for them to do so. It's stolen by the shame spiral. It's stolen by staying stuck in our symptoms and going to war with them. And it's not like, oh, I have joint pain, ha ha ha, like just whatever. It's like everything's good. Everything's like divinely aligned and perfect. It's like, no, that is not authentic. We can't ignore things All I'm saying is not to get stuck in the shame spiral and try not to, there's no going back, there's only going forward. And I wanted to share that with you all here today in hopes that it supports your forward movement, like where you may not know where life is directing you. And if you're really at war with your symptoms, if you're really at war with your marriage, if you're really at war with not having a partner, if you're really at war with your PTSD or anxiety, like I was for over a decade after my accident, then you're not going to allow that space isn't going to be there for you to move forward. And here's the deal, right? It doesn't mean that you're not going to heal or get better, because while I still have anxiety and PTSD in certain situations, I'm not going to get on an elevator. I'm not going to fly in an airplane. I'm not going to do those things. It's just, I've accepted it. It's not going to happen. You can't convince me. You can't tell me to take a Dramamine. You can't tell me to just take shots of tequila. You can't tell me to do um, tapping or EMDR. Please believe me, I'm not, everybody wants to fix something. We all want to fix something, right? And so that mentality is also a trap. And it doesn't mean that you're not going to heal. It doesn't, if you accept your symptoms, if you accept, I'm talking about you now. If you accept that your bladder is fucking inflamed and it drives you nuts, it doesn't mean you're not going to heal or get better. If I accept that my anxiety is something I have and that's triggered by X, Y, and Z, it doesn't mean you're not going to get better. What it means is you're not at war with yourself. You can put your energy in different places. You're not going back, and you have created space for something new to emerge in your life. Now, when I accepted these parts of myself that I fucking hated, I can't even tell you how much, just loathed, okay? When I accepted that in these parts of myself, the symptoms started to get better. And I'm not saying they're fully cured, because they're not. And they may not ever be fully cured. And I'm okay with that, because my quality of life is much, much better once I've accepted how the state of my body and what its triggers are, and that, it's just a trigger and it just is. And that's how it is. And that's okay. I haven't lost. Actually, it's very relieving. It's relieving. And I'm going to keep doing homeopathy because, there are so many things. I used to not be able to go on walks by myself, or it was so triggering because I was trapped in the car all by myself. It was just my nervous system got fucking flared around this anything solo. After homeopathy, no problem. I can go for walks out in the woods in the middle of the wild, no problem. There's things that are improving, that can improve. But am I here beating myself up over how long it's taken, or I should have done it this way, or I'm not fully there yet? No. Why? Because it's an energy steal and it's a trap, and it's not going to help me move forward into a place that's just a better quality of life. I know this episode was a little bit different than most of my episodes. Um, so I hope if you're here listening to it, that it helped you in some way. And this is also why I feel like people come to me for homeopathy, and we do sessions, and they tell me, and they're like, "Oh, see, I'm a lost cause and this symptom's so intense." And I was like, "Listen, you could literally tell me anything, and it's not too much, it's not too intense. I don't think it's not workable. I don't think that, it's a tough and challenging case. No, I'm not, I don't think that, because of what I've been through. It's also helped me to be able to sit with other people who've been through things that are shitty, that they have shame about, that they don't like about themselves. And I'm like, yeah, I totally get it. And this is how we're going to work with it. And don't worry, there are lots of ways to work with it. So I hope that was helpful. You can follow me on the Eat Heal Farm Substack to learn more about my personal journey, but not just that, the journey with our farm, the journey with our food system. I'm going to do a lot about how to improve the quality of the food you eat and how to navigate your grocery store shopping. And I'm going to do a video very soon on how to make homemade yogurt. Lots of people have been asking for that. I literally make like 2 gallons of, excuse me, of yogurt a day for our farm in our farm store. So I'm going to be sharing that really soon. Of course, if you want to work one-on-one with me, book an initial homeopathic session. It's a great way to start unraveling symptoms and bringing more ease and relief to root causes of what you're struggling with. And you can head over to my site to book the session, heatharshepard.com, and you'll see at the top of the menu um, homeopathy, where you can work with me. Okay, everyone, have a fantastic rest of your week. I will see you in a week or two.